Have you ever wondered what it takes for a good person, someone kind, compassionate, and ethical, to commit acts of cruelty or even become a monster? Imagine someone you admire, someone you trust, slowly transforming into someone unrecognizable. It's unsettling, isn't it? The very thought challenges our understanding of human nature. But what if I told you this isn't just a rare anomaly? What if this is a pattern woven throughout history, humanity, and human behavior itself? What if you learned that good people, just like you and me, can and sometimes do terrible things? This question has haunted philosophers, psychologists, and historians alike for centuries. But today, we'll explore it in depth. Together, we'll dive into one of the most unsettling and thought-provoking aspects of human behavior. Why do good people sometimes do bad things? By the end of this exploration, you'll uncover the shocking psychological mechanisms that push ordinary individuals into darkness. And more importantly, you'll learn how to recognize and resist these forces. Perhaps the most empowering insight will be that we can protect ourselves from these destructive forces and even rise above them as individuals and as a society. So stay with me, because this journey may forever change the way you see the world and yourself. Let's start by addressing one of the most important concepts in understanding this phenomenon, the Lucifer effect. This term was popularized by psychologist Philip Zimbardo, the man behind the infamous Stanford Prison Experiment. Zimbardo's experiment revealed something deeply disturbing about human nature, something that shook the very foundation of our understanding about good and evil. In the study, college students were assigned to either be guards or prisoners in a mock prison. Within days, the guards began exhibiting sadistic behaviors, while the prisoners became withdrawn, submissive, and distressed. What was most shocking was how quickly the participants lost sight of their individuality and embraced their roles. The experiment was cut short because of the rapid descent into abusive behavior. Zimbardo's findings didn't just apply to a few students in a controlled environment. They illuminated something far more terrifying. The environment we are placed in, the roles we adopt, and the authority we obey can distort even the most virtuous individuals, turning them into perpetrators of harm. This is the Lucifer effect in action. History is riddled with examples of ordinary people committing extraordinary atrocities. Consider the guards at Nazi concentration camps, the soldiers who carried out ethnic cleansing, or the bystanders who stood silent as horrors unfolded. These weren't born monsters. These were regular people who, in certain environments and under particular circumstances, became perpetrators of unimaginable cruelty. But why does this happen? What pushes good people over that precipice? The answer lies in the complex interplay of psychological and social forces that shape human behavior. Among the most powerful of these forces are authority, dehumanization, and group dynamics. Psychologist Stanley Milgram's famous obedience experiments from the 1960s give us a disturbing insight into one such force: authority. In these experiments, participants were told to administer electric shocks to a person in another room whenever that person gave an incorrect answer to a question. The shocking part? The person receiving the shocks was an actor pretending to be in pain, but the participants were told to keep administering shocks even when the actor screamed in agony. And shockingly, most participants did, because they were told to do so by an authority figure. The majority followed instructions, even when they believed their actions were causing extreme harm. Why? Because they trusted the authority figure and obeyed their commands. Now, think about your own life. How often do we follow instructions without questioning them, whether from a boss, a leader, or societal norms? What would you do if someone in a position of power asked you to compromise your morals for the so-called greater good? Would you stand firm, or would you follow along just like so many did in Milgram's study? Another critical psychological factor is dehumanization. This is what happens when we strip others of their humanity, when we label them as the enemy, subhuman, or lesser. Once we dehumanize someone, it becomes far easier to justify acts of cruelty and even violence. This tactic has been used time and again in history through propaganda, war, and even in everyday conflicts. When we reduce others to mere labels or stereotypes, we stop seeing them as people with hopes, dreams, fears, and families. Instead, they become others, faceless and undeserving of our empathy. This makes it all the easier to commit atrocities without guilt. Dehumanization is alive and well in today's world. We see it in the way entire groups of people are demonized in political discourse. How often do we hear entire populations reduced to labels like illegal, radical, or unworthy? How does this dehumanizing language affect our empathy, and how does it contribute to the growing us versus them mentality? Dehumanization is only one part of the puzzle. Another force that shapes behavior is group dynamics. Zimbardo's Stanford Prison Experiment demonstrated how the roles we play within groups can drastically affect how we behave. College students, randomly assigned to be either guards or prisoners, began acting out their roles in harmful ways within days. The guards exhibited sadistic behavior, and the prisoners showed signs of extreme stress and submission. What's more unsettling is how quickly the participants lost their sense of individuality and conformed to the roles they were given. How much of our identity is shaped by the roles that society imposes on us? Are we truly free to act as individuals, or are we unconsciously playing parts dictated by the systems around us? When you look at your own life, how often do you conform to societal expectations without even questioning them? How much of what you do is shaped by the roles you are expected to play? Recognizing these forces, authority, dehumanization, and group dynamics, is the first step in resisting them. But what about the tipping point? When does an ordinary person cross the line from good to bad? The most terrifying part is that this change is often subtle. It begins with small compromises, decisions to stay silent when witnessing injustice, choices to follow along with the crowd just this once, just because it seems easier. Over time, these small compromises accumulate, and before we know it, we're standing on a slippery slope, heading toward moral failure. Think about it. Have you ever made a choice that went against your values simply because it felt safer or more convenient? What were the consequences? But it's not all doom and gloom. Once we understand these forces at play, we can build resilience against them. Here's the burning question. Are some people immune to the Lucifer effect, or is it something we all face? The uncomfortable answer is that none of us are entirely immune. Psychologists have debated whether personality traits like strong empathy, self-awareness, and moral courage can protect against moral corruption. While these traits may offer some protection, the truth is that under the right, or perhaps wrong circumstances, anyone can be swayed. We all carry within us the potential for both great good and unimaginable harm. This duality is a central theme in philosophy and literature. Carl Jung, the renowned Swiss psychiatrist, called it the shadow, the darker, often repressed parts of ourselves that we hesitate to acknowledge. Understanding this is crucial. It's not about eradicating our darker impulses, but about confronting them and integrating them into our conscious awareness. We all have a shadow. Have you ever experienced a surge of anger or envy so intense that it startled you? Have you ever acted impulsively in the heat of the moment, only to regret it deeply later? These are glimpses of the shadow at work. Left unchecked, this shadow can manifest in ways that align with the Lucifer effect. But here's the hopeful part. Awareness is our greatest defense. By understanding the psychological mechanisms that lead to moral collapse, we gain the power to resist them. So, how do we protect ourselves from moral collapse? The answer lies in cultivating moral courage. Moral courage is the ability to stand up for what is right, even when it's difficult, even when it's uncomfortable, and even when there's a personal cost. It's what compels individuals to speak out against injustice, protect the vulnerable, or admit a mistake even when doing so would be easier to avoid. Think of figures like Rosa Parks, whose refusal to give up her seat on a segregated bus ignited a civil rights movement. Think of whistleblowers who expose corruption at great personal risk. These individuals weren't immune to fear, but they chose to act despite it. You can develop moral courage too. Start by identifying your core values: honesty, compassion, fairness. Reflect on times when you faced a moral dilemma. Did you act in alignment with your values, or did you compromise them? You can also practice mental rehearsal. Imagine yourself in challenging ethical situations and decide how you'd respond. Finally, build a support system. Surround yourself with people who share your values. This will provide the accountability and encouragement you need to resist the pressures of conformity and authority. Self-reflection is another powerful tool. Ask yourself regularly, what motivated my actions today? Did I treat others with respect? Were there moments when I stayed silent when I should have spoken up? The more you reflect on your choices, the more intentional and ethical your decisions will be. In times of pressure, resilience becomes key. It's not about being fearless. It's about continuing to act in accordance with your values, even in the face of fear. Build resilience by strengthening your emotional and mental well-being. Practice mindfulness, journaling, and seek guidance from trusted mentors and friends. In the end, we must recognize that the battle between good and evil is not just external. It's an internal struggle that each of us faces daily. The final, most empowering insight is this: the line between good and evil doesn't run between groups or nations. It runs through every human heart. As Alexander Solzhenitsyn once wrote, the battle line between good and evil runs through the heart of every man. This realization is humbling. It reminds us that we are all capable of both harm and healing, but it also gives us the power to choose. Every moment offers a new opportunity to act with integrity, to resist the pull of darkness, and to contribute to a world rooted in compassion and justice. So, what will you choose? Will you choose to be a passive participant in moral failure? Or will you rise to be an active force for good in the world? The choice is yours. And remember, the world desperately needs more people who choose compassion, integrity, and courage. Will you rise to the challenge? Thank you for accompanying. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below so we can discuss. Wish you and your family good health.